On October 17th, 2023, the Brightmoor family's world was turned upside down when, at the age of just 44, a tumour was found in Angela's brain. 1 month later, they were introduced to the world that is hospice. This is Angela's story. Walking the final path together, a Hospice West Auckland podcast. Thanks for joining us for episode 1 of Angela's story. I'm Esther, I lead the social care team with Hospice West Auckland, and I'm joined by Aron.
Hello.
Hi, Aron.
How you doing?
Good. We're a little bit awkward.
We are a little bit awkward.
Podcasts.
Yes. I'm Aron, and I'm Angela's husband.
And we are doing a podcast about Angela and her story. The aim of this podcast is for us to share her story, both of your journey as you went through your care with Hospice West Auckland. Why is it important to you, Aron?
So there's a couple of reasons. So the first one is to help people that have been through the situation that we've been through, and one of the other reasons is to repay hospice for everything that they have done for us and continue to do for us. And then the other side is I get to talk about Angela and I get to share her story with everyone. So yeah.
This podcast is going to be real.
Yeah.
We're going to laugh.
Hopefully, yep.
We might cry. I
think so, yeah.
We might get emotional. We might mess up. We've probably already done that twice already. But that's the purpose of it, really. And at the end of the day, we're getting to share Angela's story.
Yeah, and I think that was, when we first talked about this idea, that was really important to us, is to make sure that, that it is authentic, it's genuine, and, and hopefully that comes across when we're talking.
So who was Angela?
Well, originally, to me, back when I was 17, Angela was hot office girl.
Hot office girl, okay. There's a story here, isn't there?
So, Angela and I actually, very first met. We both worked at Farmers,
okay,
the department store, obviously, and I worked in the TV and audio department, and she worked in the office, and that hence the reason
hot office
girl, and but she was too cool for me, so. I didn't really talk to her. I was a bit shy and stuff like that. So we kind of knew who each other were.
Cool.
And, it was kind of, hey, how are you kind of situation. And, like I said, we kind of knew each other, but not in a, we weren't great friends or anything.
Yeah. So you left Farmers.
So I left Farmers and we kind of went our separate ways. Angela stayed at Farmers. Angela worked at Farmers for 27 years. So she was part of
she was hot
the furniture.
Girl
she was hot office
for 27 years.
For 27 years, that's right. And we kind of bumped into each other every now and then, like out and about. It was quite a few years. I hadn't seen her for a very long time, and I went on a random trip to Mangawhai with a group of friends, and bumped into her at the Mangawhai Tavern. Yeah, and there's just this connection. And that was it. From that point on, we were inseparable.
So lots of fleeting encounters, and then a reconnection later on at, of all places, the Mangawhai Tavern.
Yeah.
How did you meet there? What happened?
So I'd been invited by some friends. I kind of hummed and hawed, wasn't going to go. Then I decided to go. I think I was at the bar, and she went up to my group of friends and said, "Oh, is that Aron Brightmoor?" And they were like, "Oh, here we go."
What's he done?
Yeah. And I walked back to the group, and I'm like, "It's hot office girl. It's Angela."
She is.
And there she is, and had one of those moments where, it's Angela.
Yeah.
Until she said, "You don't remember my name, do you?" Completely gone from my head. I said, "Of course I do." And she was like, "Well, what is it?" And I was like, "God,
well, it's not hot office girl.
It's not hot office girl." And she was like, "It's Angela." I was like, "Yes, it's Angela." I was just about to say that. Yeah. we were inseparable that whole night. And then she kind of left with her group of friends, and it's still texting till 3 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. And I was like, okay, well, this is pretty cool. I started dating. We went on a few dates, and it just got to a point where I was like, this is the one. Like, this is it. Like, I've never actually been more sure of anything. I was just like, she's the one. And we had so much in common. We had kids from previous relationships, and we liked the same music, we liked the same things, and it was just like, oh, this is almost too good to be true. And yeah, I said that was it. We were inseparable. I think within 6 months we were living together, and
wow.
So we kind of blended our little families together, and she made it so that yes, we had children to other people, but when we were all together, it was we were one kind of family unit.
This was a solid family.
This was how it worked.
And how was she with your kids? How did the introduction go?
Yeah, like it was just really natural, and my two boys would, they just liked her straight away, and and vice versa, and there was no kind of awkwardness or anything like that. It was just like, yeah, like let's do this, and like I said, she made it so that there was no us and them. It was no, we're a family. Yeah. I think it helps that she was a fun person to be around. I know that that's kind of cliche thing to say, right? But she was, she just and she had this way of just making everybody feel really, really comfortable. And I'm not that person, right? Like I'm quite awkward around new people and stuff like that. So if we went anywhere, she made me feel at ease. By if I walk into a room full of people I don't know, I go and stand in the corner and I don't talk to anyone, because I'm awkward about that stuff. But having her there, and and she walks into a room and she's just like, let's talk to everybody. So she made me feel a lot more comfortable in those kind of
She brought you out of your shell a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And and she just made friends with anyone. And I mean, that's kind of how we met. At Mangawhai, she'd kind of just gone on a journey by herself through the Mangawhai Tavern, making friends with everyone. And that and that's what and that's what she did.
I remember a brightness about her. And I remember nights at the football club, Angela just dancing, and bringing this whole group of people along with her, and just having fun, and this brightness that radiated from her.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like she could make friends with anybody, and she made everybody feel comfortable and special. Yeah, that's the word for it. And that's just that's who she was. And she just had this ability to just make everyone feel comfortable. And I mean, and I think that was proven at her at her funeral, when there was 400 people. Like, I think sadly that kind of says a lot about someone when when there's that many people there to kind of say goodbye to you. But and to be fair to her, support her and us, through that, through her illness. There was so many people that just wanted to help, and I think that was kind of, because of who she was.
It's a testament of who Angela was.
Yeah.
So 6 months into the relationship, you move in together, you blend your families together. Then there was a proposal at some stage.
Yeah. So. So we met at the Mangawhai Tavern in February, and the following December I decided that
This
you
is
know,
it.
this
She's
is
the
it.
one.
She's the
She's the
one, and
one.
I'm gonna propose to her. And so Angela, Angela has a history at with Ruakaka Beach, and her sister and that live there, and they've spent lots of holidays and stuff there. So I was like, right, Christmas Day, I'm gonna take her up to Ruakaka Beach. I'm gonna propose to her there.
That's a bold decision, Christmas Day.
Well, it means
Is
you
it-
can't forget it, right?
Wow, yeah. Sometimes
I mean, obviously it's romantic too, but it means you can't forget it.
you can't forget
Can't
it.
forget it.
But if it goes wrong, that's Christmas Day is going to be awkward for the rest of your life.
Yeah, look, I was banking on it not going wrong.
You were quietly confident, huh?
I wouldn't have said that, no. But it was, I thought it was. I'm not the most romantic of people, and I thought this is probably about as romantic as we're gonna get. So that was it. Yep, Christmas Day. We're gonna drive up there. I'd spoken to her dad, obviously, and asked his permission, and I'd spoken to her sister, and her sister lives up there, so we were going to go and see them for Christmas. I was like, look, this is what I'm going to do. And we drive up there, and it's raining. It's Christmas Day, of course it's raining, right? So it's raining, and not just raining, like it's a storm. We get there, and her sister's like, okay, well, while we set up Christmas lunch and stuff, why don't you guys go for a walk on the beach? And you're like, okay, yeah, let's go for a walk. Yeah. And so Angela's like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess, like, why are we going to the beach? I'm like, yeah, let's go for a walk on the beach. Yeah. So we go to Ruakaka Beach, and we're walking along, and it's like, it's horrific. Like, it's just blowing a gale. There's sand, like, just hurtling down the beach. I was like, this is the least romantic thing ever.
And are you at this stage running in your head, is this the time to do it? Or
I'm like, well, I got to do it.
Double down.
Yeah, we just, like, the quicker we get this done, the quicker we can get off this beach.
Hardly get onto the beach.
Yeah. So we walk along a bit, and I'm like, okay, well, I gotta do it. I gotta do it now. And I can't get down on one knee because, like I said, the sand is just hurtling down the beach. I'm just gonna get taken out. So I'm kind of like, okay, I just have to do it. So I propose, and I Angela, will you marry me? And she just kind of looks at me, and she's smiling, which I'm like, okay, well, that's a good thing. But there's like this, like, dramatic pause. I'm like, are you doing this for effect, or what are we doing here?
She's keeping you on your toes.
Yeah. And I'm like, like, it felt like 10 minutes, right? Like, it's probably like 30 seconds, but I'm like, what? And so she hugs me, and I'm like, she's going to say no. And she's just trying to soften the blow. Yeah. And
Your Christmas is ruined.
Christmas is ruined. And I'm like, is that a yes? And she's like, of course it's a yes. I'm like, okay, well, we didn't need the 10-minute pause, but thanks for that. Yeah. And so we go back to his sister's house, where everyone's kind of waiting with bated breath, and there's his sister's standing there with with a bottle of bubbles and stuff like that. But I walk in first, and Angela's nowhere to be seen. I walk in first, and she's like, well, her sister's like, how did it go? And I was like, she said no.
She's not here.
She's like, no, she didn't. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm just going to grab my stuff and go home.
Long drive home.
It's a long drive home. And, so thankfully we don't do a 10-minute dramatic pause for them, and she comes in, and, and everybody's happy. So that was cool. But that's like that whole situation is our relationship. You know what I mean? Like, it just, and we kind of just fed off each other back and forwards, just, and it's all just banter and stuff, but that, but that's just what we did.
With her.
Yeah.
So proposal, marriage.
Well, yeah. There's a pregnancy chart in the middle there. So so I think we got engaged in December, and I say about a year and a half after that we got married.
Yeah.
In May, but by that stage Angela was 7 months pregnant.
Wow.
It wasn't a shotgun wedding. It was all planned
Uh-huh.
previously, obviously. And again, like we just had so much fun, you know, and like when we planned the wedding, it was all about everybody else having fun. That's all she wanted.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, she was like, look, the ceremony doesn't need to drag on, you know, and like once we finish the ceremony, I just want everybody to like be having a great time and have drinks and all that kind of stuff. And that's what happened. Like that's what she wanted. She just wanted everybody to have fun. And somehow every kind of function that we planned, or you know, if we had a big birthday party or something like that, I would be on the dance floor or have a microphone, and she would be walking the room. And that was kind of, this default became how we did things.
That was the Angela and Aron show.
Yeah. Where's Aron? Well, Aron's in the middle of the dance floor over there, singing his little heart out, and Angela's making sure that everyone's okay and having a great time.
So 7 months pregnant, you get married.
Yep. And then
you
we welcome Taylor into the world.
Yeah.
And like Taylor is such a mummy's girl. Like, man, just, it didn't matter what she was doing, you know, like, so obviously Angela was still at Farmers, so she worked retail. So there was, you know, so Saturdays was me and Taylor by ourselves, and, you know, we'd hang out and stuff. We could be doing the funnest thing in the world. And as soon as Angela walked in the door, see Dad, I'm out of here. And yeah, they just had this really special relationship. I'm the kind of dictator, I guess, like, you know, the strict one, and, you know, these are the rules and this is how we do things, and stuff like that. And if there was kind of anyone needed a telling off, it was me that, you know, that did it. But Angela had the compassion, and you know, and was the, I guess, the safe harbor from the storm. And they all knew it. It didn't, you know, it wasn't just Taylor, and you know, it was all of them. They knew that, you know, if they needed something, they could, you know, could go to her. Yeah.
So really close family. What sounds like an incredible love story, reconnecting after you'd known her in a younger life, and then reconnecting, finding love, bringing your family together. Let's talk next about the diagnosis, or leading up to that point where Angela started to notice changes. Talk me through what happened.
Yeah, so like there was no major health issues in kind of Angela's history, like nothing at all. Like, you had to work really hard to get Angela to go to the doctor. She started to develop a tremor in her hand, and we kind of thought, oh, okay, like so a pinched nerve or something like that. And it was like, you know, maybe you need to go and get it looked at. I said it took a lot to get her to go to the doctor, and, you know, as much as I love her, she liked to procrastinate. You couldn't get her to do anything without kind of a decent amount of waiting in between.
Much less a doctor's visit.
Much less a doctor's visit. So, you know, so she had this tremor in it, and it just gradually, kind of slowly started getting worse. And so eventually she went to the doctor and was assessed, and they were kind of like, oh yeah, well, we're not too sure, but we'll send you for we'll send you to a neurologist, but that's probably 3 or 4 months away before you get an appointment. So, okay, well, that's cool. That's, you know, there's not much we can do. They didn't seem kind of overly concerned about it. We got to October of that year, and Angela was getting ready to go to work. And she was starting a bit later, so I was working from home, and so she was getting ready for work, and she was in the bathroom, and I looking in the mirror, and I said to her, I said, "Oh, there's something wrong with your mouth."
Mm.
And she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Like one corner of your mouth is a bit droopy," and she's looking in the mirror, and she's like, "I can't see it." I'm like, well, "It's kind of
I can see
definitely there. I can see it." And so obviously with the, that combined with the tremor, we're like, "Hey, maybe, maybe just ring the doctor and see what they say."
Because the droop of the face, you must have been thinking stroke,
Yeah.
something's going on.
Yep. So just all of those things, right? Like, like I said, with the hand tremor and stuff, like what's going on. And so the doctor's like, "You got to go to the hospital, like now." So we're like, "Okay, cool." So we jump in the car and we go to the hospital, and this is probably 9 o'clock in the morning. And let's go to the hospital, and they're doing stroke tests, and they're doing strength tests, and they're doing CT scans and all of that kind of stuff. And they're like, "Well, we can't really see it. We've done some scans. All your strength tests and stuff are coming back normal. So we're waiting on the results of one more scan, but maybe just wait for the neurology appointment, and we'll get you guys out of here." So this is 5 o'clock. So we've been there all day. Yeah. So we're kind of packing up, ready to go home, and that's when the doctor comes in, and it's not good when the doctor kneels down next to the bed. Angela's on the bed, and I'm in one of those really uncomfortable chairs in the room, as soon as she bent down, I was like, "There's something really not right here." And that's when they told us that, and that the last scan had found a mass on Angela's brain. So, wow. Yeah, and kind of, from that moment on, your world is literally upside down.
Everything changes.
Yeah, and you don't know in what way. It's going to, but you don't know how much. And it's I mean, there's probably an understatement, but it's a lot to take in.
Yeah. What's running through your head when the doctor says there's a tumor, there's a mass? I can only imagine the questions that would come to mind for me.
For me, it was like it was just blank.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't thinking. I literally wasn't thinking anything. I wasn't thinking she's going to die or anything like that. It was just like, we're both in this hospital room being told this news. Mm-hmm. We're both just crying. And like we haven't even comprehended what that actually means.
So shell shock.
Pretty much, and then I'm one of those people that like, okay, now we have to do this, and this, and I go into, I guess, logistics mode, right? Yeah. And so after that kind of initial shock, I'm like, right, well, now here's all the things that need to be done right now, and I guess that's my way of dealing with stuff, right? So I'm on the phone to Angela's sister. Now, Angela's sister lives in Ruakaka, so she's 2 hours away, and in my head, I'm like, what do I tell her?
Yeah.
Knowing that she has to sit in a car for 2 hours, do I tell her nothing?
Yeah.
Do I tell her what I know? All of these things. And, so I've got to tell her, I think in the end, I just tell her, you have to come to the hospital.
Yeah. You probably got the kids running through your mind as well.
Yeah. So the kids have had to have been picked up from school and all of that kind of thing. So, yeah. So the next thing is, what are we doing there? Mm-hmm. And how do I tell them?
Yeah.
Like how do I tell them what we've just been told? Like, this is massive for us to deal with. And I now have to tell 4 kids,
Yeah.
you know, and try and explain that to them. So I wanted to go and get them, you know. So I said to Angela, I'm going to go and get the kids, and I'll be back. And I remember walking from the ward to the car, and I've had to ring my boss to say, hey, I'm probably not going to be in for the next couple of days. This is kind of what's happened. And he said to me at the time, he said, look, I know it sounds worst case scenario, but, you know, people survive these things. People are okay, you know, like it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. And
I remember walking to the car thinking, you know what? He's right. It's going to be hard, you know, and she's probably going to have some time off work, and she'll probably have surgery and stuff like that, but she'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that, because I thought we were special, or, you know, we were better than anyone else or anything like that. I was just like, well, this just doesn't happen to us, you know, like we're just a normal little family. Like, and I remember saying this to myself as I'm like, nothing like this happens.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be hard, but it'll be fine. Yeah. And so then you kind of like, okay, yep, it's going to be okay, and we'll deal with this, and, you know, and let's go and talk to the kids, and, you know, and get that out of the way, but we're going to be okay. Yeah.
So was Angela referred to a specialist? What happened next?
So she stayed in hospital overnight, where they kind of tried to figure out what the next moves were. And so we went in on a Tuesday. The following Tuesday, she was having a biopsy. Wow. So basically literally having brain surgery. So it all happened really, really quickly, you know. Yeah. So all that stuff happened really, really fast. So she's having brain surgery, to do the biopsy to kind of find out, you know, what it is. Now, in between times, in between that week, they've kind of said, oh, well, you know, this is where it is. It's not a great place.
Right.
You know, they, you know, kind of preparing us down that road. It was, you know, the tumor was in the center of her brain, you know, so the area where it was where all the signals for her brain had to go in and out, and, you know, kind of through this tumor. So literally worst case scenario. Yeah. And so she has brain surgery. She comes out of brain surgery, and like, I don't know what I expected. I didn't expect the person that came out. You know what I mean? Like, she comes out, and this is 5 hours of surgery, and then an hour of recovery. And she comes out, and we get to go in and see her, and she's just like, oh, I'm really hungry, and like, just like, I'm talking a million miles an hour, and you're just like, okay, like, I don't know if I'd be so chipper after I, you know, had brain surgery, but cool, you know, that's great. Just like nothing had happened, you know, fine. Just totally fine. And
what's a bit of brain surgery?
Exactly. And so that kind of, you're like, okay, well, that's good. Yeah. You know, like, that kind of adds to this, we're going to be okay, you know, and everything's going to be fine. You have to wait 2 weeks. They send the biopsy away. You have to wait 2 weeks for the results to come back. But in the meantime, they're talking like, okay, like, you know, you might be able to go back to work part-time, and, you know, but you'll have to take it easy. You're not allowed to drive and stuff, and all that kind of thing. But, you know, like, should be okay.
So you're feeling hopeful.
So, yeah, you're just kind of like,
making a plan. We're just waiting for the results.
Yep.
Then we'll have surgery, some form of treatment.
100%. So we're kind of prepared for those things, right? But we're prepared for a positive outcome, you know. and by this stage, we've kind of let people know, and this is kind of what's going on, and she's still Angela. She's just her normal self. We get to the, they're kind of like, oh, it's 10 to 14 days. So we get to the 14th day, and by this stage, everybody kind of knew, well, you must be getting results today.
Yeah.
And so we get a phone call, the night before, and they're like, oh, we need you to come in. And the same way as when you see a doctor kneeling next to the bed, you kind of have that sinking feeling. It's the same when they say, we need you to come in.
Can't be great if we
can't be great, right? And so the results are back, and we have to go in. And yeah, and that's where the brain surgeon comes in and said, I'm really sorry, guys, but it's basically worst case scenario. It is a glioblastoma, so it's super aggressive, and basically there's nothing that we can do. We can, we can't operate because of where it is. You can go through chemo and radiation and all of that kind of thing, but ultimately that's an attempt to prolong life. That's not gonna, it's incurable.
She's not being cured.
Yeah. And obviously that's quite a lot to kind of take in.
And is that the first time you've heard it being told incurable?
Yeah, you kind of, because all of these other things have kind of been going on, and you don't know, so you're trying to be positive, and it's that's also the first time we got a prognosis.
Yeah.
Right, and so we get a prognosis that's 18 months to 2 years, and at that time you're like, that's not much time.
No.
That's but, and then they explain what a prognosis is, and and some people can last longer, some people don't, and I'm like, well, that's okay. She's going to be at the high end of that, and they're saying 2 years. We're going to have 3, 4, 5 years. We're going to beat it, and we're as much as we can. You're trying to be positive. Like we're not special. This just isn't going to happen to us.
Because who thinks about that at your age? Something like that happening.
100%, right? Like never in a million years, and we've gone from everything being completely normal to you've got 18 months to 2 years, to live. And so then, that we drive home. Now it was late afternoon. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We have to drive home. There's never been more silence in a car than that drive home, because what do you say? There's literally nothing to say. And again, I think it goes back to that first reaction, that shell shock is just like, because there's nothing you can do. Like, and when I kind of thought about it, as in the few days after, it was like, in essence, we've all got a ticking clock, right? The difference is we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So so at the time I was like, the difference between me and Angela is that she's been given a time.
Yeah.
And that it was just like how do you deal with that?
What happens next? And I'm sure you're thinking, you've got your kids know that you've gone to this appointment.
Yep.
The family are waiting for you to come back and share the news.
Yeah, so the kids were, like I said, everyone knew that it was going to be this date. So we got home, and and the kids were waiting. And Taylor, who was 9 at the time, we didn't walk in and tell them straight away. We kind of we had kind of an hour to ourselves to just kind of try and process how we were going to deal with this situation. And Taylor came in and said, "What's wrong? I feel like you're hiding something from me." Now, obviously, she knew, we had told the kids after the initial diagnosis, hey, this is what they've found. We don't know what that means yet, and all of that kind of stuff. And then, obviously, mum's had brain surgery, so they're aware of that. But again, this is now like, hey, this is actually what all of that means. Yeah. But they wanted to know, and I think, they needed to know. And from that day that we first went to the hospital and we found out that about the mass, there was never anything that was hidden from them. They were told everything. This is what that means. This is what's going to happen, and all of those kinds of things. So nothing was ever hidden from them. And I think that made it easier for everybody.
And there's a lot of talk and thoughts around when you're in these situations. Do we tell the kids? How much do we tell them? Do we be honest with them? Which is something I think it would be great for us to explore a little bit further down the track, how you navigated that, keeping the kids informed, but also managing their emotions through this and their grief going through it.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm interested to know, glioblastoma, as we know, it's a really aggressive form of cancer. And I know I reflect on you talking to me about the changes that you were seeing with Angela. How did you first hear about hospice? What happened? What was your introduction like?
So it kind of it kind of got mentioned through a mutual friend of ours, who said, "Oh, look, yeah, who said, look, if you need anything from hospice, kind of, let us know." And then at the same time, through the hospital, we were assigned a surgical nurse, who said, "Hey, look, you might want to make contact with hospice." Now, my initial thoughts around that are, well, why would I do that? She's not dying right now, and I think that's, that was my initial thoughts around hospice. Was hospice is a place where you go almost like a hospital, and you go there and you never come out.
Yeah.
So in the space of a couple of days, I've had 2 people say to me, if you might need to make contact with hospice. And I'm like, why? Why do I need to do that?
She's got 2 years.
She's got 2 years.
More.
Yeah, 100%. And at this stage, totally fine.
Yeah.
And she can still do all the things that, that she could do before. And so that was our kind of initial kind of contact. I was like, what are these people talking about?
Do you know, it's surprisingly common how many people think when you hear the word hospice, it's a place that people go to die.
Yeah.
And that it's your last days of life. And I think it's, hopefully, through this podcast, we can start to talk about how much more it is.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's definitely not an understatement to say that we couldn't have done what we did for Angela without hospice. And I mean, that's ultimately why we're here today. Like I said before, is for me is to repay some of what hospice did. Hospice allowed us to care for Angela at home. She never needed to go to hospital. We looked after her with the help of multiple services that you guys offer, and and like I said, and that's kind of why we're here today.
Okay, thank you, Aron. I think we'll leave it there at episode 1. Next episode, I'm hoping that we can explore the story of after you've been introduced to hospice, what happened next? How did you first get engaged with our service? Who did you meet? What was your initial assessment from our team like? And hopefully we'll have some of the staff, including the nurse that provided some care for Angela, coming in to talk through their experiences and supporting you and Angela as well.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.